Hello and welcome to a brand new special episode of Where Do We Begin? We've been working super hard on this one, so I'm very excited to bring it to you. Usually I'd introduce my lovely co-host Jackson, but I'm afraid, guys, I've got to be the bearer of bad news. Jackson's going to be taking some time off the podcast to focus on some work stuff and just have a bit of a break from it. But on the upside, we've got a brand new recruit. He's a great friend of the show and he goes by the name of Lockie Gibbs. He's the new co-host. Lockie, how are you?
Mate, I'm absolutely stoked to be here, Harper. It's grand final week. The Cats are in the grand final. I can't complain, really. We've got such an exciting episode ahead. We've got some just awesome guests from not only Australia, but all around the globe. I think this is going to be a really awesome episode, and I just can't wait to crack into it.
Yeah, and if you want to see who the guests are and where each of their sections are, just go to the show notes or the description, and we've got a timestamp for each guest or group of guests, and we're going to be asking all those guests for their predictions on the game at the end, obviously. But where can the listeners go for our predictions on the game, Lockie?
Yep, wait to the end for our own thoughts on the big game. Can't wait.
Listen all the way through. It's an absolutely cracking episode. Let's get into it. All right, and our first segment, I'm super excited for this guest. He does a bit of radio with ABC Grandstand and, of course, a big AFL media guy, and does the AFL Exchange podcast as well. Welcome, Mitch Cleary.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure to have you, Mitch. How are you going today?
Up and about. Sunday morning, Geelong's into their grand final. We'll get to see the Cats go around again, and I think it's an awesome storyline heading into this week. Danger's first grand final after 5 attempts in prelims. Gary, the GOAT, goes around again. We've got Dusty going for his third, Norm Smith. Storylines everywhere. Just a pity the first Victorian only grand final is going to be played at the Gabba. 2011, last time Geelong Collingwood played off, and unfortunately the three of us are stuck in Victoria.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, hey? But so just like prelims have just finished, obviously, recording this on a Sunday morning. Any big news that we might not know about coming out of those games heading into the grand final?
I think the two grand finalists are pretty good. I know we're speaking early in the week, but it's hard to see them making wholesale changes to those sides. I think Richmond weighed up the second ruckman and Yank dominated in that last quarter. So hard to see Malby or Chol coming in or them changing things up too much. And as for the Cats, I think that small forward role, Sam Simpson came in and replaced Tom Atkins for the semi-final and thought he's been pretty good, Sam Simpson. So I'm likely and predicting they'd stick with the 22s as they sit right now. As for the losers, well, Grant Birchall did his hammy, but does have a contract for next year. He's triggered an extension. Expect him to go on unless something comes out of the blue. Ryan Burton would have missed as well for the Power quad injury, his third quad injury for the year, and we know Brad Ebert's retired for the Power. Hard to believe, 260 games, and he's only 30, so he played a lot of footy, Brad Ebert, and his last moment on a footy field will be well remembered as the courageous player that he was.
Yeah, 100%, but I guess anything can always change. Like you broke the story of Darcy Gardner, who I don't think leading up to the game there was much talks about his injuries, and he was obviously laid out, so that can always change. Now, talking about Brisbane, where do you think they lost the game last night?
It's funny, speaking to a couple of people at the game, just that hunger and intensity they brought against Richmond. You go back to that first half against the Tigers, they drew 4 50-metre penalties out of Richmond that night, that qualifying final. And they didn't have that sort of in-your-face intensity that we sort of come to expect from Brisbane. And I know Geelong's possession-style game can sort of slow teams down and sort of make them defend quite a lot. And it felt like Brisbane went on the back foot from the get-go last night. And even, I'm sure you boys are watching half-time, Chris Scott saying we dominated the game. And the Cats probably could have been up by 5-6 goals at half-time. And had they taken their chances, probably could have put the game to bed earlier. A little bit disappointed in their key forwards as well, and I'm sure we'll get to Joe Danaher as well, but just the one goal from McStay and Hitwood combined, a lot was left up to Charlie Cameron, so I think the Lions will be keen to address a few of those areas heading into next year.
Yeah, 100%. It felt like, I guess, as an outsider, it felt like the emotion of the qualifying win after going out in straight sets last year. It really just felt like that. Like, yes, that was their big finals win, and just all the emotion sort of been sucked out. It would have been like Collingwood the week before with their win over West Coast.
Yeah, and the other keen point I took it out of Chris Fagan's press conference last night was they were just beaten up around the footy a little bit. The Cats were bigger, stronger, and just brushed off a few of those Lions boys. And young players, they're going to be better for years to come. But just felt like when the game was on the line, the Cats really stood up. I was a bit surprised. They brought Kane Mellis-Yeoman in to replace Kadeen Coleman.
Yeah, I was as well. Coleman played, I thought, pretty well in the qualifying final, and he added a bit of speed, which is probably an area that Geelong lacked in. Yeah, and
we know Geelong's small defenders can go missing a bit at times and be sort of left wanting. And I thought Geelong were able to move the ball out of their back half too easy last night, and Coleman may have been able to apply a bit of that pressure. I know Alice Yeoman came in to do the job on Tommy Stewart, but would have liked to have seen him used around the stoppage a bit more earlier, because Chris Fagan's talking about the big bodies. Well, he's as big a body as you get, Cam Alice Yeoman, and he was anchored deep into their forward line trying to stop Tom Stewart.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the criticism that you could have of Geelong's backline is that they have 6 defenders over 190 centimetres, and Jed Buse is a small defender. He's 186 centimetres and he's over 90 kilos, so he's not a small boy either. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting selection call. As well as I agree with your comments, I guess, around the clearances and the stoppages. That's probably been Brisbane's one wood and strong suit throughout the year, and Cats just buoyed them.
Yeah, exactly. And Mitch mentioned the lack of intensity before. It was just noticeably, they just looked off from the get-go, Brisbane, and even when they were within 2 goals, they just didn't look like winning in the last. I think it was 2 goals in the last quarter. They just didn't look like winning. And I know I was watching it with my dad in the third quarter. Geelong were 3 goals up or something. I said, Geelong's going to end up winning this by 40 points. And what do you know? They won it by 40 points. So, but anyway, we'll move on because we've got to keep it fairly short. We'll move on to the fallout for Brisbane. So how do you reckon they're going to kind of pick themselves up from a bit of a disheartening prelim loss next year?
Yeah, Chris Fagan, he's been around the traps for a while. He was at Hawks when they lost in 08. They missed finals for a few years there, and then went prelim exit, grand final loss, and then they went on that three-peat. So he's as good as anyone you'd want at the helm right now, and I think they've just got to drive bigger, stronger players heading into next season. I love their midfield mix. Lachie Neale can't get any better, let's be honest. But a few of those other guys, can Rayner push into the midfield? Do we see Hugh McCluggage become sort of that inside player a bit more? Has he got another gear to go? I think he's a super player, but he's only 22, 23 right now. They've got a couple of other guys, Eli Smith waiting in the wings. We haven't seen much of him, but a couple of these other kids sort of waiting around the traps. Can we see more of Kadeen Coleman? These type of guys. So keen to see what they've got in that area. But the big one is Joe Danaher. I think really interesting to see what happens with that mix of that front half. Is 3 too many? Is Steph Martin done as well? I think probably that's something I should have mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
he was well beaten. He was well beaten last night, and Oscar McInerney showed when Steph was out with his back injury for the back half of the season that he can hold the mantle as number one ruck. So maybe Oscar takes a bit more of that rucking next year, opens up at the forward line, they go with McStay, Hipwood and Danaher potentially. So something to watch, but I'm definitely, when I'll be putting my predictions in for 2021, I'll be definitely having the Lions top 4.
Yeah, do you reckon they'll be aiming for a premiership or a grand final next year?
I have to be. If they've gone from straight sets exit last year, would have learned a lot. And you speak about before, Harper, about their lack of intensity and their hunger. Well, I think they were probably dominated a bit in those games last year, and it felt a bit like that last night. I think Brisbane will learn a lot from that game last night. Go to the tape and watch the hardened Geelong team as to what they can do. And, yeah, I reckon positive horizons ahead for the Lions. They should be pushing for top 4 and a grand final berth next year.
I'll tell you what I want to know about the Lions is what is in the water up there, because it seems they consistently get injury-riddled players and they just turn their careers around. Like Grant Birchall, he had calf issues for 2 years. Lincoln McCarthy. You look at their injury list, they've got 3 players on it. Marcus Adams, among others, he's probably the main name. They've got such a strong, strength and conditioning staff, and they're also looking at Joe Danaher, who's obviously already had injury issues, as well as Nakai Cockatoo. Yeah. So they're really, resilient group. But it was interesting looking at their depth, tonight, their emergencies. I think they all had under 5 games. Payne, who was a laid-in, Coleman, Hinge, and Fullerton. I was going to ask Alex Witherden, where does he fit in?
Yeah, so he wasn't an emergency. He wasn't in those 4 you mentioned.
No.
Yeah, I'm being a bit surprised by him this year. So obviously Starcevic has stepped up and he had an injury-prone first 3 years at the club and has had a really good year. I've got my eyes on Alex Witherden this trade period. I think the Lions, if they got a compelling offer from somewhere else, they'd be keen to let him, well, not keen, but they'd be happy to explore the alternative for him. And Victorian kid, 2 years left on his contract. I'd be keeping an eye on him. Archie's come in. They've gone with Birchall. We mentioned Starcevic. Noah Answorth is around the mark as well. So I think there'll be suitors for Alex Witherden. And now their season's done, a few other clubs might start picking up the phone.
So we were talking about it off air and a bit at the start of the show. You're a big Cats fan, obviously. What are your feelings leading up to the big game on Saturday?
Yeah, it's funny. It hasn't really hit me. I'm sitting in South Bank right now in Melbourne, and Geelong's into another grand final. I'd usually be doing cartwheels right now, but maybe it's because of how busy work's been, or the fact I'm 1,500 kilometres away down the road. But I think it'll start to pick up. I think that Geelong will have learnt a lot from round 17. We actually showed some numbers on the round so far. After that game, Geelong got trapped in their back half a lot that night. So guys like Menegola, Duncan, the guys you want to be using the ball going forward, were chipping it around in their D50, and Richmond's pressure that night was super. Gary Ablett didn't play that night. There's a few other injuries. Gary Rowan was laid out that night as well. So I think the Cats will take heart from their finals, their last two finals, and having learnt a lot from Richmond. In saying that, the Tigers are going to be... they're going to be super. When they flick the switch, there's not many better. And if it gets greasy, it might work into their favour, the conditions at the Gabba. But I think we've got a pretty cool grand final coming up.
Yeah, of course. Now, you mentioned before that you worked with Cam Guthrie's brother at AFL Media. Mate, how about those photo post-game, just the raw emotion with his teammate, I guess, console him after a win and him realising he's going to be playing off in a grand final?
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous of Ben. I worked with him at afl.com.au. He works for the AFL Players Association now. So one of the four Guthrie brothers, he and the rest of the family flew up to the Northern Territory, done their 2 weeks of quarantine, and went to their first game this season as the prelim last night. And then they get to see Zach, who was an emergency as well, consoling Cam in the rooms. And it would be pretty emotional. I know Geelong's, they've tried to say there's nothing in the preliminary final hoodoo, but it's hard to escape there being anything else to it. And a lot of those guys, I think Cam got through maybe 3 or 4 losses. We know Dangerfield's lost a stack, Blitzarves. A lot of these guys have been around the mark for Geelong, have lost preliminary finals in key times, and they're now into a grand final. The Monkeys off the back, and I'm stoked for a few of those boys. They get the chance to go around and try and chase a flag. Yeah,
a bit of obviously a grand final like no other up in Queensland, but if you win it, what's it going to feel like, do you reckon, compared to 07, 09, 11, obviously you being around for all of them as well?
Yeah, might need to get down to Geelong and start swinging off from traffic lights again like they were back in 2007. I was just saying to you boys before, I still remember I was 14 back in 2007 and driving with the family back down the highway after watching the Cats win a drought-breaking flag and driving through town. People were on cars and people's shirts off running down the street, and then 16 was cool, and then 18 I finally got to go out and experience it. So it'd be weird this year. It'd be a good problem to have, though, if Geelong do get the chockies, but yeah, pretty jealous of those that get to go up to the Pink Flamingo or one of those up in Goldie.
Yeah, where'd you celebrate at when you were 18? Is it the Eureka in Geelong or
no, it was the Eureka. I don't know if you boys have heard much about Geelong, but Eureka was the place to be back then, and then Lambie's on the Sunday night, so I reckon I would have done the double back then. It's pretty cool. And who would have thought? Gary Ablett, I saw a stat this morning, 04 he played in a prelim for Geelong, had 13 touches that night. 16 years later, he's having 14 touches and still doing the business in a big prelim. Now he gets to chase. He's 30. He missed 2011, of course, but it's just a remarkable effort for this footy club. And a large core of that group from 2011 is still there, and they're now playing off in a grand final 9 years later.
Yeah. So we traditionally have bit of friendly competition at the end of each show, but of course it's a bit of a different one. So we're splitting our last segment, which is usually the quiz, into a few mini segments. And I actually know, I think I messaged you 1 or 2 years ago, Mitch, on Twitter about getting a quiz onto AFL Exchange, but don't bother now because the Where Do We Begin quiz is just a level above any other quiz you could imagine. So it's a bit of a different quiz today. So I'm going to be pitting you two against each other. And we're going to have some different themes with our different guests. But for you guys, I just need you to answer, going backwards from the year 2019, each Norm Smith medalist.
Oh.
So, Lockie, do you want to start with 2019?
Yep, Dusty.
Mitch?
Luke Shuey.
Lockie?
Dusty, but should have been Basher Hooley.
Jason Johannesson.
Yeah, correct. 2015, Lockie. This might get hard here.
Yeah, I think that was the year still Rioli won it.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Mitch, 2014.
I always get these mixed up, so I've got a 1 in 2 chance. I'm going to go Luke Hodge.
Luke Hodge is correct. 2013, Lockie.
Yep, went to this one. Brian Lake.
Brian Lake's correct. You guys are doing well. 2012, Mitch.
Ron O'Keefe.
Yeah.
Ryan O'Keefe, correct. Lockie, 2011, a Cats player.
Jimmy Bartel, although I reckon his 2009 performance was just as good on Lenny Hayes.
So can we get the 2010 replay Norm Smith medalist, Mitch?
Scott Pendlebury.
Oh, he's nailed it. 2010, the draw, Lockie.
See, it's Lenny Hayes, but I always remembered it as Brendan Goddard because he was awesome that game.
So your answer's Lenny Hayes, and it's correct. 09, Mitch.
Paul Chapman.
Paul Chapman's correct. Going very well, guys. Lockie, 08.
I reckon Lockie's Googled these.
There seems to be a theme here. I keep saying people were robbed, but it was Luke Hodge, but it should have been Gary Ablett.
Yeah, 2008 is Luke Hodge, correct. 07, Mitch.
Normie himself, Stevie J.
He's nailed it. 06, Lockie.
Mate, I was struggling for this one, but I think it was Andrew Embley.
Absolutely correct. 05, Mitch.
Chris Judd in a losing side.
Yeah. One of four to win in a losing side. 04, Lockie.
Mate, I'm struggling here. So I was 6 at the time, and my mum's a New Zealander, and my dad's not big on the footy, so there wasn't too much footy on the household at this stage till I convinced him. I'm struggling here. It wasn't Byron Pickett, was it?
Absolutely correct. It's Byron Pickett. Mitch, 03.
This is a very good question. Like I said before with the Hawks ones, I get mixed up between the years.
I think we nearly got this guy on the podcast once.
Did we?
Yeah. I think this was when Jackson was on the show, Lockie.
Okay.
Right early on, yeah.
Simon Black.
Simon Black's correct. Obviously the star of some recent cash converters ads. 2002, Lockie.
I actually know this one, so thank you that I got this one. Nathan Buckley in a losing grand final.
2011. It's not 2011, 2001, sorry. Mitch, might be...
Sean Hart.
Sean Hart's correct. 2000, Lockie.
Oh, mate, I'm struggling here. I've got no idea. I would have been 2 at the time. I've never seen the game. I'm trying to think. I remember Shane Woden won the Brownlow that year, and I know Essendon beat Melbourne by 56 points. I think this is where we lose it, Mitch. I'll go...
If you get it wrong and Mitch gets it wrong, we'll keep going.
I'll jump in. James said, yeah.
Oh, that was the only play I knew.
Yeah, I'll give it to you, Lockie, because I think you knew it. I think you said it. 1999, Mitch?
Yeah, I reckon Shannon Grant.
Absolutely correct. Shannon Grant, 1998, Lockie.
All right, I'll save Mitch a bit of time. Andrew McLeod, 98, 97.
Yep, nailed it, 96.
Yeah, you didn't know who 96 was, did you? Glenn Archer.
Yeah, correct. 95, Lockie.
Geelong lost this one to Carlton. The only Carlton player that I think, Greg Williams.
He's nailed it. Jeez.
No way.
Yeah, 94, Mitch.
Like I said before, I get these mixed up when teams win the same time. It's a 50-50. Was it Dean Kemp?
Dean Kemp is absolutely correct, Lockie.
So 93.
93, yep.
So that's another Essendon premiership. There's only two players I know from that side. Oh, actually, no. Did Hurd play in that one?
I can't comment on that, I'm afraid.
He didn't win the Norm because I don't think he won two Norm Smiths. The only other two players I think... I'll go... I think you might beat me on this one. I'll just go Mark Harvey.
Mark Harvey's incorrect. Mitch, if you can name it, you win.
Michael Long.
Michael Long is absolutely correct, and he's won it.
We got a fair way back.
Yeah, you deserve that win. I fluked a couple of those. The James Hurd one.
Yeah.
I would not have got the 2001 Brisbane Lions player. So
I think James Hurd did play in 93, but he was very young and
so
Michael
I didn't think
Long
he won
obviously
Norm.
winning that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got quick questions that we'll be asking all our guests for the podcast. So what's your tip and margin this week for the grand final, Mitch?
Richmond by a goal. I just think they're too strong and they'll have taken too much out of that round 17 game.
Okay, and Norm Smith?
Yeah, I like to go something left field. So we've had enough of Dusty, haven't we? All right, how about... You can tell I haven't really thought about this too much just yet. Dion Prestia.
Ooh,
okay, and what will the Sunday headline be? I open up AFL.com, just click the page, and then what's the headline that I'm seeing?
Meatball whips up a storm.
That's good stuff. Well, I hope Geelong gets up and we don't get those headlines or those tips, because I don't think anyone other than Richmond fans wants Richmond to get up. But we better leave it there because we've got to quickly get to our next guest. So thank you very much, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, boys.
Geez, we've had some great guests and they're just getting better, because this one is one of the best footy journalists in South Australia. He works for the Adelaide Advertiser. Welcome to the show, Matt Turner.
Hey lads, how you going? Thanks for having me.
No worries, Matt. You timed that turn to perfection. You were facing down and then you just sort of faced up just as we said your name. I like that one.
He's called Matt Turner for a reason, you know.
Yeah, hey, that's it. I've been called worse. It wasn't a deliberate thing. The sun's just going down over here. Got a bit of glare in the eyes. I think I'm just trying to get a bit of a vibe for where the best position is in this afternoon sun. But I hope you're going well over there in Victoria, mate. It's a big week, grand final week approaching, and like I said, thanks for having me on the show to discuss all things grand final.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Now, first off, we'd just like to touch on a bit of Port Adelaide. Where do you think they lost the game on Friday night?
Yeah, so, look, epic game. The Power have had a bit of a penchant for losing in valiant style in their most recent finals. 2014, Hawthorn at the MCG, 3-point loss. Andrew Moore had a kick late to put Port Adelaide in front, missed. Angus Monfries kicked some late goals. Luke Hodge smother, had a bit of everything. And then 2017 elimination final, Port loses in probably the most dramatic circumstances I can recall for any final, which is extra time after the siren for a free kick. That was quite controversial at the time. And then Friday night, losing by a goal, looked like another extra time situation might be upon us. I'm not sure Port people, let alone neutrals, would have been able to handle that in terms of heart palpitations and whatnot. But look, I think in terms of where the game was won and lost, 16-4 clearance count in the last quarter. Richmond went into the game second last in terms of averages in the league for clearances this season. Port Adelaide first in the league in terms of averages this season, in terms of clearances. And in the last quarter, Richmond completely flipped the script. Yank was enormous. They were able to just control the stoppages, and on a wet night, which I think plays to their favour a little bit as well. They're sort of scrappy, move the football forward at any cost, territory game, taps and little kicks off the ground. They were able to control the game from the clearances. So I think that's where it started. There are other little factors as well. It's easy to sort of point to a lot of different things to say, oh, geez, it could have been this, it was that. What about selection? Who played well, who didn't? But at the end of the day, 6-point loss. Probably comes down to a lot of things, but none more so than that clearance count.
Yeah, as a neutral, if you're watching a Port final, you're pretty much guaranteed for a good game. I know somehow that game against West Coast since 2017, I think, somehow massively underrated. It's one of my favourite finals, just a great, amazing game from a neutral perspective. But I don't want to dwell on that loss too much. If any Ports fans are listening, they're probably a bit sad about that. We'll move on to next year. I think Port's going to do pretty well next year. I think most people are thinking that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, see, look, it's an interesting one. We've seen a number of teams, haven't we, in recent years, or probably further back than that, that have made a preliminary final or a grand final, lost, and then been the automatic prediction among journos and the wider footy public, supporters and whatnot, as the team that is destined to take the next step. And Port's a great example of that. I still remember so Port Adelaide was pretty much a basket case. If in the 2010, 11, 12 era, Ken Hinkley comes in, they go semi-final out of the blue in his first year. They beat Collingwood over in Melbourne, then lose to Geelong in another pretty epic sort of game. And then the following year, they make it all the way to a prelim final, again, that game against Hawthorn that I mentioned. And I remember after that, a lot of the talk, not just in Adelaide, but in wider footy circles, was that Port was primed to take the next step, that they were going to be the darling team, that they had enough players and they would compete for a premiership in the years thereafter. Now, guess what? Their next preliminary final was Friday night. They didn't get back there for another 6 years. So what that says to me is two things. A, you can never... or you need to take your opportunities when they're there, regardless of whether you're ahead of your time, in your window, whatever else. Port didn't take that on Friday night. And the other thing would be that they're hard to get to as well, and that not necessarily those teams are just going to automatically get there. I asked that same question of Tom Jonas after the game. I spoke to him. He was kind enough to chat only 25 minutes after they lost. His take was that they are better placed than they were in 2014. They're a closer group. He thinks they're a more even group. He thinks their combination of young and old is better. I tend to agree with him. I think the Butters, Dersman, Rosie triumvirate is very, that's as good a three-pack that a club's got in a draft for a while, in terms of particularly not having, none of them were top three picks, I guess. And then I think what Port also has up its sleeve is they're very bullish on the guys that they drafted last year. We saw Mitch Georgiadis come in and have an impact for them. But Miles Bergman, Dylan Williams, Jackson Mead were also top 30 picks that they've got.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How do you think they're going, and do you think any of them can fill in Brad Ebert's position?
Yeah, so I guess the tough thing for all AFL clubs this year, mate, is obviously the fact that there were no second-tier competitions that had AFL players in them this year. So in Victoria, I know you guys didn't even have the VFL going this year. We had the SANFL over here, but Adelaide and Port Adelaide, as per the AFL rules, were not allowed to actually have their top-up players playing for the Crows reserves and the Port Adelaide Magpies. So what that meant was those two teams didn't play. The SANFL played as an 8-team competition, and so your guys like Miles Bergman, like Jackson Mead, like Dylan Williams, but also players who, when they got dropped, say when Justin Westhoff at the end of the year, Riley Bonner at the end of the year, Jared Leonard, Cam Sutcliffe, they're having to find form in internal trials or trials against Adelaide, or Justin Westhoff played a trial getting flown up and playing for Richmond in the week or two ago. So I think that wouldn't have helped a lot of the younger players around the competition. Port played, I think at one stage they'd only played about 30 players. I'm not sure what the number finished up with. It might have even ended up around that. So one of the lowest in the league. I think next year they'll certainly try to get more games into those young guys. But at the same time, you want a balance between getting those games into the young guys. But if you're a club like Port that is clearly thinks it's in the window right now. You've got Dixon that's a little bit older. You've got Gray and Boak. So some of your best players are still your older guys. You don't want to go too far the other way and giving too many players a crack just for the sake of it. I think they'll balance it well. Brad Ebert's retiring. Justin Westhoff is retiring. And there's a couple of spots up for grabs. So, yeah, I do think you'll see maybe a Miles Bergman next year, Dylan Williams and Jackson Mead. I think all three of them. Port's quite bullish about a lot of them. And then they're going to get a kid this year called Lockie Jones, who the expectation is maybe a top 10 pick. He's an NGA prospect, and he's a halfback flanker built like a you-know-what, brick something or other out the back. And he's got a great mullet. He's been playing SANFL footy all year, and he won a premiership yesterday playing for Woodville West Torrens as an 18-year-old. His thighs are Ollie Wines-esque. Been likened to Shannon Hearn in terms of what Hearn was like over here in South Australia as a young fella. So he's another one that they'll come in, they'll match whatever bid comes for him. So they are well placed, and they've got young players that'll come in. Who knows what they'll do in terms of more experienced guys, but I certainly think that they can be there or thereabouts next season. It's just a matter of, like I said, it's not just going to happen for them. Who knows what's going to happen in terms of the fixturing and COVID and whatever else. So they're well placed, but a lot of water has to go under the bridge to get back to a preliminary final.
Yeah, you speak of like the draft and trades and stuff. I think just looking at this year, Port's found a good balance between the players that have been on the list the whole way through and the trades they've had incoming in the last maybe 5 years or so. But speaking of incoming trades, do you reckon there are any particular players they should be aiming to target, or that you even know they're targeting?
It feels like every year the name on the lips over in South Australia is Orazio Fantasia, and again, he looks like he may or may not be coming to South Australia. There was Ducks and Drakes last year. Port Adelaide, I think, was waiting for him to publicly announce, hey, I want to come to Port Adelaide. He was in the process of getting a new manager at the time. It didn't end up happening. This time around, he barely played any games for Essendon this year. And it was quite funny. I remember there was a story might have been a month or so ago, about him joining a golf club over here. He's actually a South Australian. He's from Nord. He was a late draft pick. I think he played in the Nord SANFL Premiership. But his manager came out and said, there was nothing to that story. But everything points to, and I think even Adam Kelly, the Crows GM, came out and said that they are interested in him if he declares he wants to come back here. So I think, yes, it's going to happen. He will come back to South Australia, but I think this time around it looks like he's more likely to go to Adelaide. Like I said, he's probably the most obvious name. There was some discussion in the last little bit that maybe Port might try to get an emerging key defender around the place, because one thing that has been a little bit of a problem for them this year is their height down back. I think Tomahawk kicked 6. Eric Hipwood might have been 2 goals 4, but he had a lot of shots when they lost to Brisbane. And Tom Cleary did a really good job on Tom Lynch the other night, I thought. But, he's 193. Lynch is a lot taller. Jonas is 188, and he's essentially their third tall. And then the big moose, they call him, Trent McKenzie. We all call him the Cannon in the footy public, but down at Port Adelaide they call him the Moose. Not sure what that's even referring to, but he's only 192, so they could use some extra size down there, and that was something that I had heard that was on their shopping list, but I hadn't heard any particular names around that. So, look,
it makes you question. I was going to say, it makes you question why they shipped off Dougal Howard last year to the Saints.
Yes, for sure, mate. That's been a topical one over here. Dougal Howard finishes 3rd in the BNF. Which probably helps the argument that they shouldn't have traded him. But look, this is without knowing for sure. This is just the top of my head thinking as to why they might have traded him. I think they wanted an extra pick. They really wanted Georgiades in, and you looked at their list profile and thought, well, who can they trade that they can replace? So, not Ollie Wines or one of their absolute top-end talent. Who can they jag a pick 18 for, which is the pick that they got? Maybe Dougal Howard had to be the make weight to do that, and they used Mackenzie, I guess, as the replacement this year. I think that's part of it. I also think one thing Port wanted to do in its defence was to really improve its kicking. And what do we know about the cannon? I mean, he's a really good kick. He could kick the ball. He could kick the length of the field, I reckon, if he wanted to, if he really wanted to test himself. But Dougal Howard, he didn't bite off as much as more than he could chew this year with Security, which I thought was something that really impressed me about him. Because with Port, he often tried to hit kicks that just were beyond him, and would lead to a lot of turnovers. So, good point. I think Howard, they'd love to have him as well, but I think it was a case of a win-win trade. There's no reason why that can't be a win-win trade where Port gets Mitch Georgiades that becomes a great player up forward for them, and Dougal Howard and Paddy Ryder. I mean, we already saw what they did for Security this year, so there's no reason that can't be a win-win trade. But that is the position that I've heard that they're looking to maybe strengthen.
Yeah, 100%. And now we're recording this on a Monday, which would normally be Brownlow medal night, but we actually had that last night. I'd love to know your thoughts. Obviously, Lockie Neal was a deserved winner, to no surprise to any, but were there any surprises on the night for you, apart from the Jack Gunston one in round 18 with the Gills call? One
of the all-time weirdest moments in Brownlow medal history, and not even... it might be number one. It might be the weirdest I've ever heard in Brownlow medal history. Like, if you had... Someone should do a list ranking weirdest Brownlow medal moments, and...
It should have been done during the COVID period.
Well,
when
look...
we had time.
Exactly. Like, I reckon Fev drunkenly giving Juddy the chicken wing and stuff like that, I reckon that's less weird than what happened last night, because it was just completely out of nowhere. It was like, all right, hang on, what the hell? Like, the most theatre you might get around a player's name is it be really drawn out, like Jay Ackermanis, that sort of thing. Or maybe if there's two people with the same name in the competition, he might say the player's full name, like B. Smith, Brodie Smith, rather than Bailey Smith, or something like that. I've never, ever heard that situation coming in. The son of Ray and Mandy Gunston, Jay Gunston, or whatever it was. That honestly hit me for six. It's 24 hours later, I'm struggling to get over it. But in terms of the Brownlow, Lockie Neal, deserving win. He's a South Australian from Kaiby Bolite down in the southeast.
Beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, well, there was a great story from a colleague of mine, Reece Humphrey, about Kaiby, a town that doesn't have a town hall, it doesn't have a school, it doesn't have a lot of things that you would expect of even small country towns. All it's got is a CFS station and a footy club, and now it's got a Brownlow medalist. It's also had Jack Trengover, an AFL captain, so it certainly punches above its weight, is an understatement. And I've just loved Lockie Neal's rise because he was a late pick, regarded as too small. He goes to Freo, plays in a forward pocket, then he finally starts to get some midfield time. He wants to get even more midfield time. Brisbane obviously looked a bit of a weird move. I remember at the time thinking, geez, he's going to a team that wasn't going great, but as soon as he's got there, that they've become a contender. And well-deserved. He was certainly a SuperCoach legend this year for anyone that had him, and a Brownlow medalist. Trav Boak, obviously with the South Australian flavour as well, Port Adelaide, much deserved. I was happy to see him for the season he's had, and he's also someone that puts in as much work as any player in the competition. He's got a sauna in his house. He goes to Red Bull and the Nike factories or the institutes in the US every off season to try and improve his fitness and his body. And at his age, to be having career best seasons is an inspiration to other older players, I would have thought. There wasn't, if you looked at the top 10, there probably wasn't too many surprises. The fact that Melbourne had 3 players in the top 11 probably was a little bit of a surprise, considering where they finished. Petrarca, obviously, we knew would go well, but then Cleary and Maxi Gawn also being top 11 was interesting. And then, I thought Jack McRae probably did a little bit better than what I thought. Bond probably not quite as good as what I thought. So there are a few little things here or there, but there wasn't anything that truly shocked me.
Yeah, fair enough. But we're fast running out of time, so we're going to get to one of our last segments, a little mini segment. We're splitting it up. Okay. We like to do a bit of a quiz on the show. And we've just been speaking about the Brownlow medal. In our last segment, we did the Norm Smith medal with Mitch Cleary. So for this quiz, it's going to be Lockie up against you, Matt. And I'm going to be asking you to name the Brownlow medalists as far back as you can. So we're just going to be rotating between Lockie and Matt, just going year by year. So Lockie, we'll start with you, 2020.
Lachlan Neale, 3 votes.
Correct. Matt, who was 2019?
Nat 5.
Correct. 2018, Lockie?
Titch, Tom Mitchell.
Correct. 2017, Matt?
2017. I'm actually forgetting already, to be honest.
Might be an early elimination.
It could be an early elimination. Let me just think about this for a moment. 2017 was Dustin Martin, I think.
That is absolutely correct, yes. Lockie, 2016.
Danger.
Correct. 2015, Matt.
Jeez, now we got another one here. I've got I always get the AFL season guides out. So that'd be a 2016 season guide, wouldn't it? 5 again?
5 is correct.
Jeez.
Matt Prittis for 2014.
Matt Prittis, 2014. 2013, Matt.
Jeez, now it's battling again here.
You're really putting the pressure on him, Lockie. Give those quick answers.
You know what it is? My 90s Brownlow knowledge is incredible, but my 2013 Brownlow knowledge is the 2013. I'm just trying to think, was it a Gaz or Juddy year? Like, it was one of those. They won twice. It wasn't a Gaz, was it?
That is correct. Gary Ablett won it in 2013.
Oh, we might need to cut out a bit of that deliberation, make it a bit quicker for the listeners. So now up to 2012.
Up to 2012.
I'm actually struggling here because I know Swan won 20.
There were co-winners in 2012. So
co-winners.
Name one each. Because Jobe Watson got the medal stripped off.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Trent Cotchin.
Trent Cotchin is one. And who's the other, Matt?
Samuel Mitchell, otherwise known as Sam.
Yep. 2011, Lockie.
Swanee.
That is correct. 2010, Matt.
Look, I could be wrong, but I would have thought then that Juddy was probably due for one. Judd.
Nailed it. 09, Lockie.
Gaz.
Correct. 08, Matt.
08. Now, I'm probably going to have to go with Bartel because that's the only one I can. Oh, hang on.
Well, if you name it right now, I'll give it to you.
When did Cooney win it?
I don't know. You tell me.
Adam Cooney, maybe.
Adam Cooney is absolutely correct.
Jimmy Bartel.
Jimmy Bartel, 07, 06, Matt.
I'm giving it in the head.
This keeps throwing the pressure on you. 06, Matt.
2006. Was that? We'll go with Ben Cousins, but it might have been 05.
Ben Cousins was in 05. It's Adam Goods, 06. So very well done, Lockie. Anyway, Lockie, I believe you've got some quick rapid-fire questions for Matt before we go.
Yeah. All right. Rapid-fire questions. Matt, who's the Premier and what's the margin?
Look, I tipped Geelong at the start of the final, so I probably should stick with that. That's not very rapid fire because I was about to give you 35 reasons why I thought they'd win. So I'll stick with just Geelong, and a margin will go with 11 points.
Love it. And Norm Smith medal.
Ooh, what did I say at the start of the finals with that? I said Sam Menegola in our pre-finals predictions, so I'll stick with Sam Menegola.
Perfect. And what will the Sunday headline be?
I mean, we always joke in our office about the headline Great Scott anytime there's someone called Scott by first name or surname. So if they really want to go with the 1 millionth Great Scott in journalism history for Chris Scott, they could probably go with that. But I think it'll be fairy tale finish or something to that effect for a Gaz headline. And, gee, what a great game he played the other night, just to show people that he's allowed to have a couple of down finals. He was just getting back into shape, but when the game was there to be won the other night, he was just about the best player on ground. And I think given what's at stake and the fact he hasn't been there since 2009, it's all there for him to be the man on Saturday. I'd love to see him win it, but I'll stick with Menegola and I'll stick with fairy tale finish for Gaz or something to that effect.
I don't think anyone would be too displeased if Gary Ablett had his fairy tale finish, other than maybe some Richmond fans, but we've gone on a while. We've got to get to our next guest, so thank you very much, Matt Turner, for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks for having us, guys, and enjoy the grand final this week, particularly you, Lockie. Hopefully your Cats can get up, mate.
Okay, and for our next guest, we've got two fans of each of the competing teams. We've got Penelope and Claire. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for jumping on. I'll start with you, Claire, a Richmond fan. So
Yeah.
What were your initial thoughts when you won on Friday night? What were your feelings? What were your emotions, going to a third grand final in 4 years?
I didn't really expect it because it's kind of like too good to be true. It's all happening so fast, like 3 premierships in 4 years, obviously. Getting
ahead of yourself.
Yeah. No, but it's crazy that this is happening just so fast, really. I think I'm kind of confident, but like now that it's so close to the game, I'm a little nervous as well. And especially because like Penelope's my best friend and she's a supporter. Like last year we went to the preliminary match together and obviously we smashed Geelong. So
Did you know that, Lockie?
Yeah, I did, and I'll have to call up Cambridge dictionaries. I think it was about a 20-point win. I wouldn't call that a smashing.
I think we all knew who was going to win.
Oh,
I don't think we did it half time when we were up by 3 goals, but
All right.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy season in general, really. But how are you feeling, Penelope, about the game early on?
Oh my gosh, I'm just so stoked. Like the whole day yesterday, I was trying to convince myself, like, it's all right if we lose because our track record in the prelims hasn't been great. But then like half an hour before the game, I was like so nervous. And then the last quarter, I just couldn't believe it. Like I was like, is this really going to happen? And we're holding on the whole way. And then now I'm just like, this is insane because I was like 8 in 2011. So I cannot remember really like what it's like at all.
yeah, 100%. I feel like you appreciate the premiership so much more the older you get because you realise that they don't come around too often. Because I remember as a Cats fan when I was younger, you sort of thought, well, winning premierships every second year, that's just sort of how it goes. But I've definitely found out the last 10 years, which is nowhere near as long a wait as I'm sure other fans out there have had to go, that premierships don't come around too often. So I'm definitely savouring this week and I can't wait to, get around it. Now, Claire, how do you think if you win this week would compare to the other 2 flags? Do you think this would be the best, being the third, and the fact that you've gone through so much off field?
I mean, I definitely think that like Richmond have put in so much effort this year and they've been so resilient with all of the conditions. But I don't know, I think I'm a little biased because I'm in Victoria and I can't actually go this year, and I was able to go the last 2 times, which was an amazing experience. So like I'm a little sad. I just have to watch it from the TV, but no, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be an amazing way to end 2020 because, for the year it's been, that would just be incredible. But, yeah, there was something about the 2017 premiership that I think it just can't be beaten, because I have always been going to games with my dad when I was little, and it would always just be losing and losing and losing. So actually winning one in 2017 was crazy for me.
Yeah, Penelope, it's obviously going to be a very different experience for you because you haven't won a premiership in 9 years and not in your memory, really. So what are your thoughts?
I'm just like, I don't even mind that it's on the TV, I don't think, because it's just being in it is enough for me. It's just crazy, I think. So I just can't even get my head around it at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. I guess following up on that, Penelope, if Cats were to win, who do you think will be the key players? Like, who do you think will, play a major role on the day?
Well, obviously, our stars, Danger, Ablett, Selwood, keeping the teams together. I reckon Menegola, after his performance last night, definitely. I've got a little soft spot for Brian Myers. Oh, his goal in the last quarter, made me shed a few tears. I was just with his unique kicking. And definitely Hawkins, if he's on, his game will be
Yeah, got to say, I wasn't looking too good for Brian Myers at the start with a dropped mark and a few other mistakes. But what about you, Claire? Who do you reckon the key players will be for the Tigers if you get up?
Well, obviously Dustin, because that's the thing. I feel like if he's playing well, then I reckon we've got it in the bag. But if he's not playing well, it really depends who's playing on him. If Dangerfield's playing a great game and he's on Dustin, that makes me a little nervous, obviously. But I think, the beauty about Richmond is that we don't really have, star players that we need that are, super critical in the game. It's kind of we are we have such great teamwork.
Yeah, a cohesive unit kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I guess Penelope, so apart from Dusty, who are you worried about from the Richmond lineup? Because obviously Dusty's the obvious one, but what other players are you worried that will get on top?
Definitely Basher Hooley, because his last few performances have been pretty impressive, especially 2017. I remember watching him and I was just
100%. I'm surprised he hasn't had a Norm Smith medal. In my opinion, he should have won it in 2017.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, Claire, what about you? Is there a particular Geelong player that you're kind of shitting yourself to come up against?
Like I said, just really Dangerfield scares me a bit. I feel like he's incredible when he's playing a good game. So he definitely makes me the most nervous.
Yeah, definitely. I also scared of Dangerfield because I don't know if you saw, but the Geelong Cats media team put it together a little Father's Day package, and Dangerfield's son said my dad's a T-Rex.
Oh, well, that scares me even more now, so thanks.
Yeah, Penelope, I don't want to put bad thoughts in your head, but if worst comes to worst and the Cats do lose on Saturday, what do you reckon will be the reasons for that?
I reckon sometimes when we don't start out great, when we don't have that energy, and if Richmond can take advantage of that and we don't get back on, then that could be quite dangerous and that'll be pretty devastating. But also, we do have a way of working our way back up when we're down occasionally as well.
Same for you, Claire. Sorry. Same for you, Claire. What do you think would have, gone wrong for Richmond to lose? And condolences in advance because Cats are going to win.
I won't need them, thank you, but that's sweet. I think probably, when we're playing a great game, I think it's because we're applying so much pressure, but sometimes when we lose it and it all goes a bit wrong, it's because we aren't able to stick on our players and get to the ball first. So I think that's usually where, if that happens at the start of the game, I feel like that's where it all just goes downhill from there. But I reckon we're going to apply the pressure. I think we won it this year, so.
Yeah, I'm very nervous. I think Richmond are a great team and it's going to be bloody tough.
It'll be such a good game because I know Geelong have been doing so well. And especially I was talking to Penelope earlier and we were talking about how the past two Geelong games have just been so good. And so I'm a little nervous, but it'll be good.
I think this was the best result for footy, Geelong and Richmond getting through. I think it's going to be an absolute cracking game. Now, I think, Harper, you have something special planned.
Oh, yeah. So we'd like to do a bit of a last mini segment. It's a bit different on this show, but of course, when you think of the Where Do We Begin podcast, you think of the illustrious guest, the awesome host, and of course you think of the famous Where Do We Begin quiz. So Lockie's going to sit out for this one because we've got two other people. So that means it's going to be Claire versus Penelope. Pretty simple, 3 Richmond Geelong based questions. Are you ready to go?
Oh no. I just don't know about this.
Okay, so your name is a buzzer. We'll start with question 1 as per tradition. First question is, so of course Richmond played Geelong this year in round 17, Friday, September the 11th. Where was the game?
Are the mics off?
Oh, man.
I pushed the microphones off. No, my audio is not working, guys. Can you hear me?
Does anyone want to have a stab in the dark?
Penelope, you go.
What, round 17 did you say?
Round 17 and, yeah, just a bit over a month ago.
Oh, gosh. Was it at...
Harper, we're in year 12.
Was it at Metricon?
Metricon is absolutely correct. We're off to a fly, guys. How about that? All right, so question 2. Claire, it's your chance to earn back some respect. It's close to the pin one. Combined, how many VFL, AFL premierships do Geelong and Richmond have?
Combined.
Yeah,
Geelong
combined.
And VFL.
AFL, VFL. Yep.
I'm going to say 18.
Okay, 18. What's your guess, Penelope?
Of all time.
Yep, VFL, AFL, so that's 1897 to now.
Oh, like... 200?
I don't
100?
think 200 seasons, so I think Claire's just got the point. It's 21.
21?
Not too bad. Not
Cats
too
have
bad.
won 9, Tigers won 12. So it's 1-1. But question 3, it's a who am I question. So if you get it early, you can get 3 points, but I'm going to go down from 3 points all the way down to 1 point with a series of clues. And once you buzz in and get it wrong, you can't buzz in again until the other person gets it wrong. So we'll start with a 3-point clue. And remember, it's all Geelong and Richmond related. So for the 3-point clue, I was born on the 28th of September 1992, probably in Victoria, but unfortunately his Wikipedia page didn't show where he was born. Anyone want to go big with a guess on the 3-point clue?
Is that all we get?
Is that all?
I'll go to the 2-point clue.
Okay.
I've played a total of 165 AFL games and kicked a total of 162 goals across 3 clubs.
So I played for 3 clubs. Played 165 games. Should I move to the 1-point clue?
All right, I'm going to move it on. Yeah. So for 1 point, I started my career at Gold Coast where I played 2 seasons. Then I moved to Geelong, played 4 seasons there, and I'm currently at Richmond and I've played 4 seasons there. Lockie's going to get in, so I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds.
I can't remember his name.
All right, Lockie, looking like a bit of a keen 5-year-old there. So what's your guess?
Joshua Caddy.
Yep, that's it.
He's absolutely correct.
Caddy's been out. He's barely been playing this year.
Has he been dropped or?
No, he's like our team's just too good. He doesn't really have a place right now. But I mean, if something were to happen before the grand final, I'm pretty sure he could be put in. But yeah.
Fair enough. But I do know for a fact that he listens to this, and I'd say he'd be pretty pissed off with none of you remembering who he is.
I know. Well, he needs to play a game. I haven't seen him in ages.
I'm pretty sure he played in round 23. Oh, sorry, round 18.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Lockie, I believe you've got some questions before we wrap it up.
Yep. All right. So I'll rapid fire questions. I'll go Claire first. So tip for the day and margin.
I reckon Richmond by 22 points.
Okay, love the confidence. And who will get Norm Smith?
I'm going to say Hooley just because that would be great. He deserves that.
Yep, like it. And so what will the headline be on Sunday morning? All the newspaper headlines.
Oh, I don't know. Just any newspaper headline?
Yeah.
I reckon...
If you were writing the headline on Sunday morning, what would you say?
3-time Tiger.
Good stuff. Penelope, tip in margin.
I reckon Cats by 2 goals.
And your North medalist?
Maybe Menegola.
Menegola, and your Sunday headline?
Cats break Tigers. Cats break Tigers. What's it called? Streak.
Bit of creativity. Herald sides can be employing you any day now.
Oh, yeah. What a compliment.
Well, I think we better leave it there, guys, because we've got another guest to get to. But thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Okay, and we're fast approaching the end of the show, and we're going over to Ohio in the United States for a very special guest. His name is Craig Wessels. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Thank you. Thank you very much, there.
Mate, pumped to have you on today. How are you going? Cats won. This is the second Cats fan we got on the podcast, so there's a bit of a flavour here.
I'm very excited. You know, I'm a lifelong Cleveland sports fan, and if you're a sports fan of anything in the United States, we don't have a lot of success. We won an NBA championship a couple of years ago, but that's only the second one in my 57 years that we've won. So a little St. Kilda-ish.
Yeah. So how'd you become a Cats fan?
About 4 years ago, I would come home. I work as a public address announcer at football and soccer games, and one night a week, one of the TV channels here would have an AFL game on, and I started watching, and I got more and more interested in it, and just became enamored with it. It was just fascinating to watch, and it took me most of that season, and then into the off season, to figure out which team I wanted to support. I mean, I completed spreadsheets in terms of how teams had done over the previous years. And again, going back to being a long-suffering Cleveland sports fan, I kind of looked at, a team that said, okay, this one looks like it's had some success. And I started talking to people online, and they said, well, you can't barrack for this club. And, everybody's a Magpie supporter. And, Richmond has just won the premiership, and you don't want to be a bandwagon fan. And, this team has just been into the comp, so they're not very good yet. So I thought, I'm going to go ahead, and I actually got it narrowed down to the Magpies, the Lions, and Geelong, and I decided to go with the Cats.
You made the right choice.
I think so too. I've met some great people online. I've interacted with folks online that have been very welcoming and opening to help me learn more about the game. So, and I truly appreciate that. I did kind of like a swag exchange with a Cats supporter who happens to be a Cleveland Browns and Cleveland Indians fan. So he sent me a bunch of Cats gear in the mail, and I sent him a whole bunch of Cleveland Indians and Cleveland Browns stuff, including a binder that had about almost 1,000 baseball and football cards going back to the 1970s into the present day, all duplicates, because all the rest of them are going to go to my son and hopefully my grandchildren someday. So we've kind of done a gift exchange there with that. But it's been some really neat people that I've talked to.
Yeah, now, before we get into a bit of analysis around the season and the grand final, the prelims, I'm curious as to what the perception of Aussie rules is in America. I know some people think it's rugby, and
exactly.
Pat McAfee was kind of into it for a few weeks, but that kind of died off. So what's their perception of it in the States?
Well, first off, I have to say that, if any of you have looked at my Twitter feed, which is Yank_on, I'm there to learn about the game, but somehow I managed to get blocked by Pat McAfee's Twitter account. Oh. I don't know what I did. I don't know what I said. I don't think I said anything, but maybe I was just persistent in saying, hey, you should check out this game. I've been blocked. I don't know what I did. So, Pat, if there's something I said, I apologize. Yeah. It's an unknown. It's because, the games, for a while we were only getting one game a week and then a couple games. And this year with the lockdown and with baseball having been shut down for several months and college basketball ending, the, ESPN and Fox Sports were scrambling for content because you can only show 20-year-old boxing matches so many times before people go, oh, he's going to get hit right here. It's going to happen right now. There it is. See, I told you. And so they started airing more and more games. So we were getting 7 or 8 of the AFL games each week that were being broadcast live on free television. Now, I've had the Watch AFL app now for 4 years, which is absolutely a great investment. But, it's something that most people haven't heard of. but when they actually sit down to watch it, they get fascinated by it. And I've converted a couple of people into becoming fans. One of them, I will let you know, has chosen to become an Essendon supporter. So good on you there.
Great guy.
Condolences. Can you give condolences to your mate?
He's the principal at the school where I teach.
What a guy.
But I'll come in the mornings and I'll have games on in the mornings, or I'll be watching 360 or something like that, or Bounce. Or if there's games that are on live, my kids that come into my first class of the day would see it on the television. And a lot of those kids are athletes, and they become fascinated by what they saw. And some of them got interested and began recording games, but there really hasn't been that groundswell at my school about it. But it's been a little bit of interest. But there is, a huge base with the USAFL here, where we've got thousands of people that play the game here in North America and around the world as well. And not all of those people who are playing it are necessarily fans of watching it, but I think it's a great opportunity for these networks to actually show another live sport. And I still to this day think that if they were to put on like a highlight show each week, of like, here's what happened, and have it on at like 8:00 at night, our time, which is the middle of the night for you guys, and promote it, because I've never seen a commercial that has said, hey, the Cats and Tigers are going to be playing next week, or the Saints and Bulldogs are playing at this point in time. I've never seen a commercial for that anywhere. It just, the game shows up. And so it's not marketed terribly well here as far as the game being watched at the AFL level. So I think that they're missing an opportunity for that, because I hardly watch baseball anymore. I don't watch, I'll watch the Cleveland Browns play, but that's pretty much it as far as the NFL goes. I'm caught up in footy, and that takes up most of my sports watching time now.
Mate,
almost all of it.
Yep, greatest sport. It almost sounds a little bit like the 1950s movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You just slowly convert one, and then the other, and then the other, and then the other. Then suddenly it's a plague. Everybody's watching AFL football in America.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've converted a couple people, and we're still waiting to find out whether or not the grand final is going to be carried live on television here. Because if it's not, I have somebody coming to my house next week at 4:30 in the morning to watch the game.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because so back in 2011, so I'm a massive Geelong fan, and unfortunately my mum she booked in a trip for us to go to America. And I actually watched the 2011 grand final, Geelong against Collingwood, on ESPN2.
Okay. Where were you? You were here in the States watching it?
Yeah,
then?
I was here in the States. Yeah, so my auntie now lives up in Colorado, but she lived in Oxnard at the time. So yeah, watched it there. It was awesome. Terrific.
Yeah, and I wish we had more of it though that was being broadcast here.
Yeah, if Pat McAfee or LeBron James or Tom Brady's listening to this, where can you watch? Where can you watch the footy in the States?
Typically, FS2 is carrying the games. They've normally carried most of the games on the Fox Soccer Plus channel, which is it's a pay service. It's kind of like Netflix, where you have to pay a little extra to get like the international soccer games and that type of thing. ESPN or ESPN2 has been carrying a game or two as well, but they've normally, throughout this summer, which has been great for the neophytes, the new fans, they've been carrying 7 or 8 of the games each week, and they've been alternating between they might have a game on FS1 and then FS2 and then ESPN, and it would just kind of rotate through the schedule. And the one drawback, and this is a gentleman I interviewed a couple weeks ago who runs a group called AFANA here in the States, which has been promoting the game for years. One of his big pet peeves is that when the game gets done here, you don't see the team singing the song in the locker room, in the changing room, that sort of thing. It's basically the horn sounds. There's 30 seconds of shaking hands, and then they cut to the next program. There's no closure to the game at all. There's no post-game interview or anything of that nature. It's just like, okay, it's over. Let's move on to something else. And occasionally if it ends too soon and they're waiting for the next show to start, they'll show like a 20-minute montage of rugby highlights. Oh. It's the same set of highlights with this really fast-paced techno music being played over top of it, making this correlation that, hey, the game you just watched must be the same thing as this, but it's absolutely not. So it's something that I wish that they would just pay just a little more attention to in terms of saying, you know what, this game is, as you said, it's a fantastic game. I've heard people call it the platypus game because it is made of so many parts. the way, because people ask me how to describe it, and I said way back in my first episode, I said it was a combination of American football, soccer, cross country, running, rugby, volleyball, mixed martial arts, and calculus is the way I described it, because it's got all those elements in it. Because I jokingly call soccer a communist sport because they don't let you use all of your body parts. So it's, and I announce soccer and I call it that. So,
So getting to the game this week, so obviously Richmond have made another grand final. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you think is their keys to victory?
I put out an episode this morning after the game, and I tipped Port Adelaide in this game, and to my peril, I have tipped against Richmond several times this year, and they've continually proven me wrong. And I come out the next week and say, you know what? They're the defending premiers until somebody beats them. They play their system so well that even though they may not be the most talented group of players, they play they're instead of having 6 or 8 superstars on their team or 4 or 5 superstars, they've got a whole group of very, very good players that play very well together as a team and know what the other guy is going to be doing, where they're going to be. They're going to be hard to beat for anybody. They're going to be hard to beat for Geelong, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I can't. I'm probably going to tip my hand here. I'm probably going to tip the Cats this week because I'm a Cat supporter. I have to do that. But it's. I won't be shocked if the Tigers win because they're a really good club. I can't. And this is one of those things that, as somebody who came to the game so late in life, I don't have in my DNA that I'm supposed to hate this team or that team. Because I've been told by Cat supporters I'm supposed to hate Hawthorn. But I don't have that in me because I love the game. I love watching great footy being played, and sure, I would love to see my team win every game. And if a team could lose and this is going to help my team standing on the ladder, then I want to see that team lose. But I'm not somebody that goes out of my way and hates on another club because I just can't I can't do it. But I think the Cats have they've got everybody healthy going into this last round. They've got a tremendous amount of options in terms of who they're going to be able to bring in if they need to. The Tigers lost their ruck. Markov, I think it is.
Soto.
A couple weeks ago hurt his knee. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Soto hurt his knee. That's the other guy's the one with the really big bushy mustache.
No, that's Soto. Soto's the one with the stash. Okay.
He and Lysette should have been extras in the movie Tombstone because they look like Old West gunfighters. But I think it's going to be a fascinating game. It's probably going to be more of a low-scoring game than we realize, just because both of them play tremendous defense, and it's gonna be one heck of a chess match, I think.
Yeah. The Cats last night our time, we're recording this on a Sunday, it was really noticeable, just their structure in defence. It's just amazing, the way they zone off and the way they mark each position or mark each man. It was like no other team, really. It was great structure and great defence, like you said. But, yeah, I think you've got a really good informed opinion because you've probably got less influence on you in the States, like compared to someone like me, Richmond fans screaming my ear everywhere. But maybe I'm wrong. But I've got to ask, who were your tips for premiers or grand finalists coming into the season?
I think if I remember correctly, and I'd have to go back, it's going to be in one of the earlier episodes, and I don't have it written down in front of me. I'm pretty sure I tipped the Tigers to be back in the grand final again. I know I had GWS in the finals, and that worked out really well. Yeah. I'm thinking I might have had it might have been the Tigers and the Eagles going into the finals this year. And I think I had the Cats finishing top 4, but I know I had GWS in the top 8. I think I had Port rebounding. I don't think I had I know I didn't have St. Kilda in the top 8 because I didn't think they were going to be there yet, but they were a very pleasant surprise. And I think next year, I think Freo is going to make a push for the top 8 next year.
Yeah, I think within 3 years, Freo will be playing off in a prelim final minimum.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that they play some fantastic defense. If they can figure out how to score some more points, I think they've got the right coach for that situation. Yeah. I think the turnaround in Adelaide is going to be a lot quicker than people think as well.
Yeah.
because they hit rock bottom this year, and I think they're once the season's done, they're going to offload some of these older players, and they're going to start that youth movement here real quickly.
Yeah, and you mentioned it just looks like they've got most of the ingredients to some good success. They had the rising star this year, of course, but we're fast running out of time, so we're going to get to a little mini segment we put at the end of each section in this show. It's a little quiz between you, Craig, and Lockie. So how much do you know about grand finals of the past, Craig?
I not too terribly far back. I know that somebody I talked to quite a bit online that does another podcast is a big Bulldog supporter. I know the Cats last won in 2011. Not a whole heck of a lot. I know Richmond's won 2 out of the last 3, and the Eagles won 1 in there. So go ahead, embarrass me.
Okay. So we've had a bit of a grand final theme, of course, throughout each quiz in the show, a bit different. So it's going to be Lockie and Craig. Just going to be naming, going backwards from 2019, the loser of each grand final. So the runner-up each year. So we'll start with you, Craig, 2019. Who was the runner-up?
Oh, well, I don't even think GWS got off the bus, quite frankly.
That is absolutely correct. GWS. Lockie, 2018. Collingwood, yep, nailed it. 2017, Craig?
I think it was West Coast.
West Coast is incorrect. So, Lockie, if you get this one right, it is Adelaide.
Oh, that's right. It was the power stance move, wasn't it? It was that one where they all tried to look tough. Yes, dadgummit. Yeah, because West Coast won the next year. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All good. But, you knew it deep down, but Lockie will take the win on this one.
So now we've got some rapid fire questions for you that we're asking all our guests. So the first one is who's your tip for the grand final and the margin?
I'm going to go with the Cats, and I'm going to say 7 points.
Yep.
I want that little comfort zone at the end.
Yeah. Okay. And Norm Smith medal prediction.
I'm going to say Dangerfield's going to have the game of his life.
Okay, now here's the one. So I'm opening up my newspaper on the Sunday morning. What's the headline that I'm seeing?
Chris Scott vindicated. He won one with his own team instead of the team that he inherited in 2011.
That's a good call. Yep. I agree with that. I reckon. I think if the Cats do get up, that will be a good headline that the newspaper headline writers will be writing all across the country. But, Craig, it's been a great little segment here, but I think we'll leave it there. So thank you very much for coming on.
You bet, gentlemen. Absolutely terrific to be on. I'm hoping to get you guys on my podcast as well here over the winter time. Here,
absolute pleasure.
Terrific. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to watching this and looking forward to listening to you guys and retweeting your links to your show as well, gentlemen. Thanks a bunch.
Okay, we're fast approaching the end of the show again, but this is an absolutely huge guest, and he's a bit of a journalistic idol of mine, I've got to say. It's the great man, Rowan Connolly. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, and I don't know why I've been an idol of anyone's, to be perfectly honest, but no, I'm suitably flattered. Good to be on.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I don't think there's a more fitting person to have on for grand final week, considering you've been to almost 50 grand finals, but that streak ends this year.
Oh, no, I'm filthy on it. I've been to every grand final since 1973, including the replays, and I was all set to bring up the half century, and coronavirus hit, and it's going to be, I've got to be honest, as much as I love it, it's going to be a day of really mixed emotions for me, and it's just going to feel really weird, watching it at night, but mainly from my lounge room and, 1,000 kilometres away, and I'll probably shed a sentimental tear at some stage, but hopefully still enjoy the game. And that's a good thing, I suppose. I think we've got a terrific game to look forward to. These are two great sides, the undoubted best side of the last 4 years up against the most consistently performed side of the entire AFL era. So it's a great clash, and I don't want to put the mocker on it, but it's just got classic written all over it, so let's hope the game actually delivers that.
I think I couldn't agree more. As a Cats fan, I've definitely got mixed emotions. I'm so happy that my team made it, but not being there as well, it's really tough. But I agree with you. I think it'll be a great contest. Probably, in my opinion, the two best teams made it, so I'm really excited for the contest. Now, it's interesting that you touched on it being a night grand final. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm filthy on it. I'm a unashamed traditionalist. I never saw any reason to change the time. I think they've seized on the fact that, not surprisingly, I think the broadcasters have seized on the fact that it's, different state, different conditions to get it happening at night, but I just don't think the returns from playing it at night are worth the trade-off to history. And, you're going to get a few more TV viewers. How many more? I don't think they even really know. So I can't see that the revenue will be any greater as a result. And I think there are some traditions that are really worth preserving. I love a Saturday afternoon game of footy. And I think that time of year, you got the sun shining and the Premiership Cup being awarded as the sun sets and, the last vestiges of winter, if you like, or spring turning into the off-season. We've had so many great grand finals played during the day. There's just not enough reason to me to change it.
Mate, I just don't understand with the fixture in the last few years. They've really gone away from that Saturday afternoon game at the MCG. It's so much more rare. And that's sort of, I think it's synonymous. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But with the grand final, it's a sunny Saturday with the two best teams going at it. And I'm really disappointed that it's not going to be played during the day this year. Although I don't think it'll take away too much from the spectacle as we have two great teams. I think Harper has a question.
Oh, yeah. I was actually going to ask you just before, obviously, still massively involved in journalism, not quite in the same way as before. Did you ever have a chance to go up to Queensland to go to the grand final or any other games?
No, I haven't. Look, I had my accreditation. In actual fact, I literally haven't been to a game this season. I was all ready to pick up my accreditation. Didn't get along in round one, and then, everything changed. So I never actually even put hands on my accreditation, and it's just been a bizarre season. I've gone from going to never less than 2, often 3, sometimes even 4 games a weekend to literally none this season. It's all been right where I'm sitting here. In fact, this is my office and I've got a TV screen above my computer, and I virtually live in this room. It's been just, I'm not claustrophobic because I've spent 90% of my time for the last 6 months in this very room I'm talking to you from now. It's weird. I've got used to it, but it's just been a bizarre season, and I hope we don't see another one like it. We can't say with any certainty that the game and the competition's going to return to normal even next year, but boy, let's hope it does, because footy is a constant in the lives of so many people in this country, and particularly those that live in Melbourne. And, thank God we've been able to have a competition at all. So I'm grateful for that. But, I don't want to do this again. I want to actually be in the press box and be in the outer and, copping abuse from people like I normally do when I go to the footy.
100%. Now, I think for me, the biggest takeout from the prelim final weekend, which is something that I know that you're quite passionate about, was the fact that the teams that have won the qualifying final, had only 4 out of the 10 or so have actually gone on to the grand final. So what are your thoughts on the pre-final bye that's been put in since in 2016?
Well, just give me a second to climb onto my very large hobby horse. I've been banging on about this since it came in 2016, and I thought so initially because 2016 we saw both qualifying final winners lose their preliminary finals, and I thought, oh, hello, that's a bit different. And now we've got to the stage where the numbers to me say it everything, and they are that prior to the introduction of the pre-finals bye, 17 of the previous 18 preliminary finals were won by the sides which had won the qualifying finals. Since the pre-finals bye was introduced, the figure is now just 4 qualifying final winners out of 10 preliminary finals. That is a major, major difference. Why is it happening? Well, I believe a huge factor has to be the lack of football continuity that those qualifying finals now have. That is because we have the pre-finals bye, they play their qualifying final, win it, have another week off. So you get sides coming to the preliminary final having played just one game in a block of somewhere between 25 to 28 days. In fact, I think Collingwood last year, who were another victim of this, I think by the time they played their preliminary, it was literally one game in 28 or 29 days. Now, the starkest examples of this for me weren't so much these two preliminary finals. They were the 2016 preliminary final, where Geelong didn't score a goal in the first quarter, while Sydney, which had played through, scored 7, game over, quarter time. 2018, where Richmond, who were the dominant team all year, had the week off, got jumped by Collingwood, 10 goals to 2 at half-time, game over. And then last year, Collingwood, they got that one game in barely a month and had caught on the hop by the Giants and had kicked 3 goals to three-quarter time. Should have been game over. They nearly came back and won, but that, to me, just sort of underlined they'd been slow out of the blocks. Now, you wouldn't say that with these two losers, Port Adelaide and Brisbane, because they kept pace with their opponent all evening, but even, as close even as the Port-Richmond game was, I would look at Port and say they weren't at their best. And that lack of continuity, particularly this season when we've got such a crammed schedule, to go from playing, 4 games in 14 days, that sort of thing, during Footy Fest, 1 or 2, to all of a sudden playing 1 game in 25 odd days, that's a massive difference. And there's no doubt in my mind when you look at those numbers, 17 out of 18 turning into 4 out of 10, it's a stark difference. And surely, okay, why does it matter so much? It matters to me because the top 4, you strive all season to work yourself into a position of strength in the top 4. And then effectively you win your first final, so you do everything right. And then effectively you're penalised for that. It doesn't make sense. Second, we have finals and a grand final. We don't have a first past the post system. So there's fewer awards for having a great season compared to, say, Premier League football, where you finish on top, you win. Given that we don't have that first past the post thing and you have to win knockout finals, shouldn't you earn some sort of significant advantage by performing good enough to finish in the top 4? Final point on this, it was introduced, it basically, and I use this phrase all the time, but it was cracking a walnut with a sledgehammer. The walnut being that Fremantle twice and North Melbourne once fielded half-strength sides in the final home and away game of the season, having secured their spot and no threat of that changing. They rested half a side. They lost those games. The AFL, I think, spooked by the gambling agencies, thought we've got to do something to protect the integrity. But in other sports, like EPL, managers routinely rest senior players in squads because of the schedule without anyone batting an eyelid. For some reason, we look at it and we go, oh, no, this is compromising the integrity. But you're talking about 1 or 2 games in the context of a 198 in a normal season, 198 home and away game season. Massive, massive overreaction. And so you put in a bye, which you can argue maybe the first week of finals have been better quality for it, though I think it's arguable. But that it has, to me, been at the expense of the top 4 teams, the most deserving teams, being effectively penalised for finishing in the top 4 and winning their first final. It doesn't stack up. It doesn't make sense. I think at the very least, the AFL needs to talk to AFL club fitness staff about the impact that lack of footy has had, talk to the football staffs, the coaching panels, how they dealt with it. Lockie, you're a Geelong supporter. I'm sure Geelong people aren't a huge fan of it. The Cats have never been great coming off the ball. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. And I just think it's so important. Nothing should be more important, in my view, than making sure whoever wins the premiership each year is a thoroughly deserving candidate. Now, again, I'm not saying Geelong and Richmond aren't, but I think it's a real shame that the best performed side of a season that was on top of the ladder the entire season doesn't even get to play in a grand final. And I think there's a fair argument that the lack of football over the last 3.5 to 4 weeks for them is a factor in them not being there for the game that counts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's something that people that are for the bye bring up. They bring up the fact that Bulldogs won the premiership in 2016, but then they fail to mention that Bulldogs were a 15-win team that season. When else is a 15-win team going to be 7th on the ladder? Normally that's top 4.
No, really, really good point. And the other point to that, and I'm glad you reminded me, and Bulldog fans get shirty with me for bringing it up, and I understand that, but the bottom line is they had 5 guys who, had it not been for that pre-finals bye, wouldn't have played in that first final against West Coast. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. There was McRae, Roughhead, Vic Liberatore, 2 more very senior players. I just don't think that they would have won that first final against West Coast without that bye. And
100%.
It was a great premiership, and they were the best performed side in September. Hats off to them. But had we had the old system, I think it's every chance they would have been out in week 1. And so how big a rewriting of finals history is that? The AFL owes it to the game, I think, to really look closely at whether this has been the right move. But I don't think they're going to do it. Gil McLachlan came out the other week and said, we had at a CEO's meeting, we asked for a show of hands and most of them liked it, so we're going to go on with it. That's not nearly in-depth enough for my liking. This needs to be really looked at because you're messing with one of the fundamental tenets of the premiership competition, which is having the most deserving teams having the advantage that their season's toil has earned.
Yeah, Rowan, you're an Essendon fan, of course, and we never win finals.
Yeah, thanks.
So we know
Thanks for reminding me.
we know when you care about that, it's a real bloody issue. So, yeah, it really needs to be fixed. It's just, shocking. I think we all agree on that. But obviously, Rowan, you know your tactics of footy well. So we've talked about with our other guests, we've spoken about the big build-up, how the teams are faring. Mitch Cleary has told us that there probably aren't going to be too many changes, no injuries, no suspensions. But how do you think the match is going to shape up tactically?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I think how much do you read into their meeting in round 17? Well, Geelong would be hoping not much because the Tigers just completely dominated them, didn't they? I mean, the Cats, it wasn't lost on me that Geelong are the highest scoring team in the competition this year and they had 1 goal 5 on the board at 3/4 time. Richmond just absolutely strangled them. Look, I think as a rule, Geelong is a high possession team. They like to control the ball. They like to control the speed of the game. That doesn't mean, by the way, that they always play slow because I think, for example, in Geelong's win over Brisbane this year, the first one, they unleashed with a 7-goal burst in the third quarter. So they're capable of flicking that switch. But basically speaking, they are a possession team. Richmond is a team that revolves around immense pressure on the opposition ball carrier, but frenetic ball movement. They like to keep the ball alive, even if it's in dispute, knocking it forward, getting numbers around the ball, harassing the opposition. Some people don't like watching that style of footy. I quite like it. I think it's chaotic, but it can be very entertaining. You see a lot of their goals coming from spills and crumbs. And the other thing about Richmond, which people don't tend to talk about enough, I think, because it's a hard thing to see unless you're at the game, is their positioning. Their positioning both behind the football and around the contest is second to none. And it really stood out to me in that preliminary final too. Tough, wet conditions. You saw Port make a number of handling errors, but disposal errors too, where they'd get the ball in a tight cluster of players, feed out a quick handball, it would miss the target. Richmond weren't missing the target. So their setups in terms of where players are standing, both around the stoppages, but also, say, behind an opposition kick-in outside the 50 arc. I remember a couple of games in the last couple of years I've sat up high in the grandstand to watch it, and it's remarkable how often the opposition will clear the lines out of their defensive 50 and Richmond will be set up on their own to take the mark and come forward again. So I think Geelong will be trying to control the football. Richmond will be desperately trying to keep the ball alive and moving and in play to disrupt the game as much as they can. Geelong will be trying to control the game as much as they can. That is the biggest difference between the two teams, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like with your Vostins, your Grimes, they've got such a strong intercepting players down there, as well as the fact that I feel like really encapsulates, would you comment on the Cat style of play, a little quote, is that you can move the ball quicker than you can run, because Cats don't have a lot of quick players, but they move the ball quickly. You know, they have like Mitch Duncan, who in my opinion is probably a top 3 kicker in the AFL, doesn't quite get the credit. Menegola is a beautiful kick of the footy, Guthrie, Stewart. So those guys are really as vital to the game plan because they have the ability to move the ball quickly. Now, what do you think will be... Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think another interesting aspect of it will be that Richmond as a team, Geelong has been really good for clearances and contested ball this season.
Particularly last night against Brisbane, against probably the strongest stoppage team in the AFL this year. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say they're not strengths of Richmond's. If you have a look at the rankings, you know, Richmond for the season are really low, like 17th, 18th in things like clearances and contested ball. But both in the preliminary final and their semi-final win over St Kilda, they were great for clearances and contested ball against higher ranked sides. So that is an area in which I think they've really focused coming into this final series. They're very good at winning the ball back from the opposition, which is proven by the fact those rankings have been low and yet they've been such a great side. But improving their stoppage work particularly, I think, has made them even more dangerous over the last fortnight. So their battle against Geelong in that particular area is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like Presti's inclusion, because he came back for that first final, that's really changed their stoppage play and it's improved them there because he's probably one of their best midfielders. I think, Harper, you have a comment to make?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say we were talking about, I think with another guest, how noticeable for me, especially, it was Geelong, just their defensive structure. It's seriously like unrivaled. It's like nothing I've seen in my memory at least. And they just forced Brisbane. Brisbane couldn't get any quick breakaway at all. Hardly last night. They just completely muzzled them. And it's just amazing their Geelong's defensive structure.
They have got a great defensive unit and have had for a number of years now. I think second for fewest points conceded this year, only behind Port Adelaide. First last year. They've been high in that category for years. And remarkably, and I feel this way about Port Adelaide too, but probably more so with Geelong because they've done it for longer, there's some players in that defensive group that no one ever talks about. I mean, Kate Kolajasny is did I say Kate or is it Jake?
Jake. It's
Sorry.
Jake.
So I knew I'd do that all the time. There you go. I don't know him. Jake Kolajasny, you know, he's been a really good player for them for years. Mark O'Connor, you just said, he's another one. We don't talk about those guys, and yet they are integral to that defence.
Yep.
It's not just the individual strengths either, it's how they combine as a unit. I think Tom Stewart has been a bit of a general of that group. He's absolutely invaluable for them. Harry Taylor getting the job done. Lockie Henderson's had a fantastic season. He's sort of come back. He's done a bit of a Liam Jones. You know, people were just about written him off, and he's come back and been... He was terrific in that preliminary final.
He got delisted, didn't he? Didn't he get delisted last year?
Yeah, he did,
yeah.
And he only got picked up because Ryan Abbott went to St Kilda. Exactly. But he's been one of our best players in all 3 finals, as well as Jack Henry. There was a lot of comments about his awareness because he got caught out of that first final. I think it was Rosie or Butters ran him down. They went down the other end and scored. But he was super last night. I'm a massive Jack Henry fan. He was nominated at the AFL Players Awards for Most Courageous Players because Cats rate him so much down there. He's fierce with the ball in the air and on the ground, and he's such a competitor. And I think I've been a little bit critical about Cats back on in terms of the fact that it's quite a big one. Like they've got 6 players down there over 190 centimetres, and then Jed Buse, the small defender, I think we commented on it before. He's not small either, but they've really, I think, like Kolajasny last night on Charlie Cameron was unbelievable. Like first quarter was looking, I was a little bit nervous as a Cats fan, but he really got on top of that matchup.
No, it's a good observation. It's caught him out at times in the past. And, you know, Richmond have more dynamic, quick, small forwards than most sides. It raises an interesting selection one too, because you'd think they're both going to go in unchanged. But I thought Jake Arts was a bit stiff to get dropped for Richmond. So do they think about bringing him into the mix to unsettle those Geelong defensive matchups? But if he comes back into the mix, at whose expense? You know, everyone in that side, I think, has probably earned their place in the 22. So, difficult one. But, yeah, like you say, I mean, the fact that a Kolodjasny can play on someone like a Cameron seems to indicate that size isn't necessarily a factor.
Yeah, Lockie mentioned Jack Henry there. Someone I was watching with last night, he kicked his first goal of the season last night, and the person I was watching with had no idea who he was, but he's such an integral part of the team, as are all the people involved with the defensive structure.
He certainly changed his physical appearance. I remember when he started, he was very clean-cut looking, and I was watching him last night and thinking, you look like you should be in an emo band or something. The headband and the hair.
But what we want to get onto is some key matchups that will shape the tactical outcome and the outcome as a whole of this game. So have you got any particular matchups that you see as important?
I'd be interested to know, because last time Grimes played on Jarvis the first game, as we mentioned before, Bolter played on Hawkins, but now I feel like the structures have changed so much. Like Richmond now has Asprey down in defence, Cats have Dangerfield playing a lot more forward than mid, you also have Gary Rowan throwing into the mix, so it's going to be really interesting. I feel like it's going to be a couple of different matchups to last time.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the matchups will be more fluid. You know, I think, I mean, look, to be perfectly honest, I do the matchups at the start of each game, and apart from a couple of key positions, in a lot of ways they've almost become redundant because, you know, particularly in the midfield now, guys will rotate through half a dozen different opponents through the course of the game. So, you know, I think the most significant ones are probably at either end, aren't they? So, you know, in Geelong's case, it's who takes Lynch, who takes Rewalt. I suspect Taylor is probably the opponent for Lynch, given the extra physical strength he has. I think you probably, in terms of key position players, you probably want a slightly more mobile defender to take Rewalt because he will cover more territory than Lynch. So I think Henderson might be the man for him. But, you know, at the other end too, it's who takes Hawkins. Well, you know, Bolter clearly did a really good job on Hawkins in that round 17 game. I think Hawkins that night, was he goalless or he only kicked one? He certainly wasn't a big influence on proceedings. But as you say, I mean, it might be, you know, like key forwards don't have a record of being huge influences in grand finals. Now, you know, I say that, and this will be the year someone comes out and kicks six, but historically they really aren't a huge factor. In fact, Rewalt kicked 5 in last year's grand final, which isn't a good guide because it was an absolute belting, but I think that was the first time anyone kicked 5 in a grand final since...
Mooney in 07?
Probably, yeah. I think, did Roughhead... Now, Roughhead didn't kick 5.
No, I think he kicked 4.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. You're probably right. You probably got to go back 13 years. So it might be the small forwards or the medium-sized forwards or the midfielders rotating forward, and there's one huge one for each, isn't there? Dangerfield for the Cats and Martin for the Tigers. So who takes them? You know, Kolodjasny, having played on Cameron, he can probably go on a small, like a... You know, who are we talking about there? You know, a Castagna or Rioli or someone like that, but also have the strengths to go on a Martin. So I tend to think that the matchups are going to keep changing and keep rolling over. Look, often with grand finals, you end up, I'm a big believer in this, as important as stars are to a winning grand final lineup, and Dusty Martin's won 2 Norm Smith medals, it's often the emergence of a lesser light who plays a big game in a grand final who can have a huge impact on the result. You know, some of my most memorable performances of all time are guys who bobbed up sort of out of nowhere. You know, like, for example, I'm going way back here, but Glenn Freeborn for North Melbourne, 1996. They were struggling at the time. He kicked a burst of 3 goals in the second quarter against Sydney, got them back on track. Port Adelaide, when they won 2004, you had Toby Thurston's bobbed up and kicked 3 goals in that game. And it's the capacity of those lesser lights to rise to the occasion. I think that, I'm sort of rambling a bit here, but I think that is a big factor for Geelong this time, because I think one area where the Cats have clearly improved is that depth at the bottom end of their 22. And a good example of that for me last night was Brian Myers, who, you know, was having a bit of a Barry Crocker early on, dropped a chest mark, couple of mistakes. But he ended up having a really big impact, I felt, in that second half. You know, guys of that stature, I think. You mentioned Jack Henry. I look at Geelong's 22 now and I find it a lot harder to identify who their bottom six are now, and I wouldn't have said that even as late as last year. So I think that's been a big improvement for them. I think that's always been a strength of Richmond's. You know, they've got so many even players, you know, and you see that through the way they've been able to negotiate their injury concerns. Guys go out and they introduce guys to the lineup who are able to play a role as much as a position and do it really well, and they end up becoming key parts of the lineup. And, you know, guys like, in their case, you know, Liam Baker, for example, I mean, he's had an outstanding season, and they're so well drilled, the Richmond players, that, you know, it's like Ross Lyon was big on this when he coached St Kilda, and to a lesser extent Freo. You lose one soldier, another soldier comes in, does his job and contributes importantly to the win. The fact that both these sides have more blokes than most sides that can do that, I think makes, again, for another really evenly matched grand final.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like something that hasn't really been spoken about much, but is why I was really confident actually playing against Brisbane, is Geelong's record at the Gabba this year. Now, I think I've got it up before. So we've played 6 or 7 times there. And so we beat Saints there by 59 points, Power by 60. We then played Bombers there, beat them by 66, and then Magpies 68, and we beat the Lions by 40. So that's pretty significant. It's almost like we're playing a GMHBA.
Yeah, no, look, it's the venue is a huge factor, I think. You're spot on. I mean, Richmond's record at the Gabba's great too, prior to the qualifying final defeat. They had won, I think, 11 games at the Gabba in a row, going back to 2005 or something. So I think all but one of them against Brisbane at a time when Brisbane have been down, so that's probably helped. But it's interesting to me, the record between Richmond and Geelong. So the Tigers have won 5 of the last 6 meetings, but 5 of those 6 meetings have been at the MCG, where I don't think the Cats have been as good. You know, Geelong's had a couple of periods of sustained dominance over Richmond. Prior to that 5 out of 6, Geelong had won, I think, 20 of the previous 21 clashes. They had another period of dominance between the mid-80s and the mid-90s where they won 17 out of 18. So it's like once one of these sides gets the wood on the other, they sustain it. But I think you're right. I think the Gabba will be a bigger advantage to the Cats than playing at the MCG. So, you know, if you think Richmond have a bit of an edge, I think the venue diminishes that advantage a bit. I think Geelong psychologically, having overcome that preliminary final bogey, I think that will lighten the load on them psychologically. So I think that gives them a better chance too. Look, it's early days. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up tipping Richmond. I tipped them to win the flag pre-season. I stayed on them even when they weren't playing so well, and, you know, I feel like I've been vindicated, so I'd be stupid to jump off them and tip the other side now. But I will not be surprised in the slightest if Geelong win, and I think the venue is a key part of that consideration.
100%. Now, we've had a little bit of a theme going throughout the show, a little mini segment that's usually a main segment of the show. Rowan, have you listened to the show before?
I haven't, I'm afraid. Apologies.
Well, anyone that has listened to the show knows that our most famous segment, our best segment, is the quiz. It's one of the mightiest challenges known to man. Okay. So I think I know who's going to win this little quiz. But
well, can I just tell you, if it's about recent events, I'm less likely to win than if it's about, you know, sort of the 70s, 80s and 90s. Because as you get older, trust me, it's one of those peculiarities of the ageing process. You remember what happened 30 years ago much better than what happened 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, so we've obviously had a grand final theme throughout the show, as it is the grand final preview. So going back from 2019 as far as you can, we're going to be rotating between Lockie and Rowan, just naming every premier. Bit of a simple one. Oh, okay. I've got a feeling who's going to be able to probably go back to 1897, but we'll start with Lockie in 2019.
Richmond.
Correct.
2018 West Coast.
Correct. 2017, Lockie.
Richmond.
2016 Western Bulldogs.
Lockie. 2015.
Hawthorn.
Correct.
2014 Hawthorn.
Yeah. 2013, Lockie.
Hawthorn.
Correct.
2012 Sydney.
Correct. 2011, Lockie.
Same as this year, Geelong.
Oh, correct. 2010, wrong.
Collingwood.
Correct. 09, Lockie.
Geelong.
Correct. 08, wrong.
Hawthorn.
07,
Geelong.
06,
West Coast.
05,
Sydney.
04,
Port Adelaide.
03, Lockie.
We'll skip ahead. Lions 3P. Go to 2000.
Yeah, okay, 2000, wrong.
Essendon.
1999,
North Melbourne.
98,
Adelaide.
Adelaide.
97, yeah, 96,
North Melbourne.
95, Lockie.
Carlton.
94, Rowan.
West Coast.
93, Lockie.
Mighty Dons.
Correct. 92, Rowan.
West Coast.
91, Lockie.
I'm trying to think. I know 1990 was Collingwood. I know 89 was Hawthorn. I'm trying to think on 91. I'm actually stumped here.
Do you want to have a
Do you want
guess?
me to fill in the blanks?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was West Coast or... Yeah, you fill in the blanks, Rowan.
It was Hawthorn. They
It
beat
was
West
Hawthorn.
Coast at Waverley.
Waverley, okay.
Yeah.
Infamous Angry Anderson Batmobile Grand Final.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Rowan's taken out the quiz. What a surprise that is.
Can I, being a bit of a smart ass, can I keep going as far back as I can?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So 1990 Collingwood, 89 Hawthorn, 88 Hawthorn, 87 Carlton, 86 Hawthorn, 85 Essendon, 84 Essendon, 83 Hawthorn, 82 Carlton, 81 Carlton, 80 Richmond, 79 Carlton, 78 Hawthorn, 77 North Melbourne, 76 Hawthorn, 75 North Melbourne, 74 Richmond, 73 Richmond, 72 Carlton, 71 Hawthorn, 70 Carlton, 69 Richmond, 68 Carlton, 67 Richmond, 66 St Kilda, 65 Essendon, 64 Melbourne, 63 Geelong, 62 Essendon, 61 Hawthorn, 60 Melbourne, 59 Melbourne, 58 Collingwood, 57 Melbourne, 56 Melbourne, 55 Melbourne, 54 Footscray, 53
Oh, here we go.
Collingwood,
Oh, he's got it.
52 Geelong, 51 Geelong, 50 Essendon, 49 Essendon, 48 Melbourne, 47 Carlton, 46 Essendon, 45 Carlton, 44 44 Richmond.
Oh, Richmond lost at Junction Oval to Fitzroy.
43 Richmond, 42 Essendon, 41 Melbourne, 40 Melbourne, 39 Melbourne, 38 Carlton,
Correct.
37 Geelong,
Yep.
30. Yeah, this is where I start struggling. 36 Collingwood,
Correct.
35 Richmond,
Richmond, no, is incorrect.
Collingwood.
Collingwood's correct. Beat South
Yeah,
Melbourne.
all right,
both
give
times
up there. South
Oh,
Melbourne
mate.
won in 33.
Harpy, you threw me to the Wolves. How was I going to beat him?
Yeah, well, I think we might have to put that bit on double speed because Rowan's got back about 85 years there. So very well done, mate.
There was a stage I could do them all, but these days I confine myself to 1940 onwards. I'm pretty confident with that.
When I was about 5 years ago, maybe when I was like 12 or so, I thought I was top shit when I could go back to 1990. But I think Rowan outdoes me a bit there.
All right, now we'll finish off.
Yeah,
with the-
that would have been entertaining listening.
Showing off your knowledge. We love that on the show.
Yeah, all right,
But
we'll
Lockie,
finish
what were you
off with
gonna
the
say?
last question. So, grand final this week. Tip your winner and your margin.
Yeah, well, like I said, look, I don't want to lock myself into this because some people put far too much weight on it, but I can't tip against Richmond. I tipped them pre-season to win it. I just think they've got an amazing record in big games historically, but even this period. I mean, you know, over the last 4 years, with the exception of that shock preliminary final loss, not only have they won, and the other week actually, but they've won most of their finals and won them really well. Just interestingly, again on a historical note, their finals record against the Cats, they've played 11 times, these two, in finals, and Richmond have won 9 of them. They have a game which suits finals footy. Finals footy tends to be pretty fierce and pretty scrappy, and I think their game suits that, perhaps a little bit more than Geelong's game suits that. And their recent record against the Cats is very good. You know, 5 of the last 6 meetings, including holding them to just 1 goal, only a few weeks back, really. So can't tip against them, but I've got a lot of respect and admiration for the Cats, and I think their last 2, you know, last night and I think their semi-final performance were really ominous. And even the Port loss, to be honest, they lost that game, but it wasn't for want of opportunities, and had they kicked straight, you know, it might have been a different story. So they're playing their best footy at the time that matters most. I think it's going to be a really close game, but I can't go past Richmond. Did you say Norm Smith medalist?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. You read my mind.
Look, I'd like to be a smart ass and come up with something left field, but Dustin Martin is the greatest finals player of the modern era. I can remember one poor final he's played and he was injured. So I reckon we're going to see our first triple Norm Smith medalist, with Dusty winning it for a 3rd time. I'm sure he'll be favourite to win it, but he's my tip. You know, if anyone from the AFL is listening, you can't be a judge if you're not there, but I'm well overdue to do I've done 2 Norm Smith medals. I did 1995 when Greg Williams won it. That was an easy decision. I did it again in 2006 when I was literally tearing my hair out because it was a close game. They're not supposed to collect our votes until after the siren, and 5 minutes before the end, I got a tap on the shoulder from someone from the AFL saying, "Can you give us your votes?" I said, "Give us a break. There's 1 point the difference. I don't know who's going to win." "No, you can wait till the siren." I did. I'm happy to say on both occasions I gave my 3 votes to the person that ended up winning, which was Andrew Embley in 06. So I'm overdue. It's been 14 years. I reckon I'm due for my 3rd Norm Smith call-up, guys.
Yeah, well, my sister was actually born on that day you voted for Andrew Embley, so big shout-out if she's listening. Lockie, you've got one more question.
Yeah, so the last one is, I'm opening up the paper or logging on to a blog on Sunday morning. What is the headline?
Footyology.com.au,
yeah, of course.
Lockie, the Australia's most independent and respected football website. I don't know. In fact, I doubt I'm going to have time to write anything for Sunday because we're doing our Footyology final siren live stream post game. So tune in for that one. Anyone who's listening. I'm trying to think. What will I end up writing about? Depends what comes out of the game, really. I think the headlines. What are the likely headlines? I think if Richmond wins, we will be debating Richmond's status as arguably the greatest team of the modern era. You know, 3 flags in 4 years. It's an amazing achievement in this era, and remarkable given where we thought they were at the end of 2016. You know, geez, they lost their last game to Sydney by 102,000 points or whatever it was, you know, and if you'd have said as though players walked off the ground after the last game of 2016, this side in 4 years will have won its 3rd premiership, you know, you would have been locked up.
Mate, I think even after 2017, because I remember after 2017 there was some calls saying this was one of the worst premiership sides we've had.
Yep, absolutely. It's just been phenomenal. And Geelong, look, I think the romantics will be barracking for Geelong because it's been such a phenomenal effort of them to keep presenting every year despite all those disappointments of preliminary final defeats, not even getting to a grand final, and they just keep buttering up every year and doing it with a really old side. They fielded the oldest side in league footy history a few weeks ago, you know, and to win another flag, I think it would be really, really well deserved. And what a fantastic end to one of the all-time great careers in Gary Ablett Jr., and Paddy Dangerfield. I love Paddy, and, he hasn't even got to a grand final, so it'd be a great reward for him. For guys like Tom Hawkins, he's played most of his career in a side that's pulled up short, so I'd love to see it for him. Harry Taylor. There's a lot of great people at Geelong. It really is a great club, and I really like a lot of their players and a lot of their former players, like Tom Lonigan's a guy I talk to a fair bit on Twitter and other social media. He's a terrific bloke. They're a great club. I really like them a lot, so I'd be wrapped for them. So either way, I'm happy. It's a great sentimental footy story, or it's a great historical footy story in terms of Richmond's place in the pecking order.
Yeah, we could talk with you about footy until the cows come home, but I think we better leave it there because we've gone on a while. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
I can hear my cows mooing in the backyard, so I probably better go.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure, guys. Anytime. All the best for your podcast going ahead.
Wow, what an absolutely cracking episode that was. Thank you so much for our guests. We both really appreciate you giving up your time to come onto the show, and you gave some absolutely amazing insights.
Yeah, had so much fun speaking with all of our guests today. All absolutely lovely people, how many ever we had. But, Lockie, we promised our listeners that we'd do our rapid-fire questions at the end of the show. I bet they're all dying to know. So, Lachlan Gibbs, I'm going to ask you for your winner and margin for Saturday.
Look, I'm just taking off my Geelong cap for a second, but I still think that the Cats will be too good. I know Richmond is such a strong side, but I feel like Geelong's form over the last couple of weeks has been absolutely exceptional, so I'm tipping them by 8 points. Fair
enough. And your Norm Smith medalist?
My Norm Smith medalist is Tom Stewart. I had a little bonus bet before the final started, and I just put it on him. I'm pretty confident, and he's a vital player to our to how we play and structure up down back. And I feel like defenders normally poll pretty well on the Norm Smith.
Yeah, and one last one, your Sunday headline?
My Sunday headline is Bring Back Meatloaf. Aussie entertainment absolutely stinks up the Gabba.
Well, we certainly hope that the Aussie guys do it well.
Now it's your turn, Harper, mate. You're not getting out of it just yet. So, Harper, your tip and margin.
My tip and margin. I'm also going to go for Geelong. Maybe doing it, making a tip with my heart instead of my head, but I'm going to tip Geelong in a very close one. Geelong by 2 points.
Oh, geez, I don't think I'll be able to watch it if it's by 2 points. I'll get too nervous. What's your Norm Smith medal prediction?
My Norm Smith medal prediction, this might be a bit out there, a bit of a fantasy, but I'm actually going to go for the fairy tale story. I'm going to say Gary Ablett.
Oh, gee whiz, I'd love to see that. And what's your Sunday headline?
And the Sunday headline, of course, Gary Ablett's won the Norm Smith medal. He's kicked 3 goals. He's had 27 disposals, even though he's played in the forward line for most of the game. My Sunday headline is godlike.
Oh, gee whiz, I'd pick up a newspaper with that as their headline. Boy, oh boy, that would be exciting. Now, Harper, can you plug our socials?
Oh, yes. Can I ever, Lachlan Gibbs? So if you want to check us out on Twitter and Instagram, which is where lots of our good content is, you can check us out at WDWB Pod. That's WDWB Pod. What about our Facebook, Lockie?
Our Facebook is Where Do We Begin? Just give it a search and you'll be able to catch our episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
Wherever you listen. And if you listen on somewhere where you can review the show, give it a nice 5 stars. Even if you hate the show, as I say, give it a 5 stars because we appreciate it and we might make you hate the show less if you give us 5 stars so we can improve. Also, give us a big shout out to your mates because that's actually the number one way our podcast spread around. But it's been a very long show. Lockie, should we leave it there?
Let's leave it there. Go Cats.
No music this week. See you next week.